Okay, welcome back. It's time for another Ori match. We've had, I think, what, 2 matches today so far, and we have 3 remaining, starting with this match out of the Mount Horror group between Vulajin and RedR3dRum, who we will just be calling Red. On commentary, my name is Gramelios, and I'm joined again by Aiko. Hi, Aiko. So do you want to introduce one of our 2 runners?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll introduce Vulajin. Vulajin, if you don't know him, he's honestly a pillar of the Ori community. He's been running the game since day 0. He runs hybrid keyboard and mouse. He's run the game twice at GDQ events. He helps run GDQ events as well as RPG Limit Break, works in the gaming industry as Microsoft, really a huge part of this community, and also brought us all to tears with his incredibly moving donation speech before his most recent run at GDQ.
Can confirm, being only like 50 feet away from him or whatever, it was quite moving. Yeah, Vulajin is super, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, pillar of the community is pretty accurate for Ori and just speedrunning in general, I think. So that's Vulajin. Vulajin is currently sitting at 1-0 in his group. He won his first match against Sonic Buster. Red, on the other side, is also 1-0, also winning her match against Sonic Buster. Red has been around Ori for quite a long time as well, started in early 2015, not long after I did, actually. She's run Defunct and Guacamelee in the past, so Red is someone who, despite taking breaks at various points during Ori's history, has been around for quite some time. We'll also quickly point out their PBs. Vulajin's PB is sitting at a 30-40 compared to Red's 38-54. So going into this, Vula's PB is significantly better, and I know that Vula has been grinding this game pretty hard, so I would expect Vulajin to probably take the victory, although Red is a very experienced veteran, you could say, Ori runner as well. So it'll be cool to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Vula definitely is favored in this match, but really anything can happen. Although I do like seeing here that Vula plans on going for 6 health cells, not just 5. As an experienced runner, he could definitely get away with 5. And oh, here we go. We're getting started.
Well, it's one of those situations. It's one of those situations where getting the 6 health doesn't cost that much time, but for a runner of Vulajin's caliber, it all but guarantees that he'll make it through the poison water. So, you know, I think he can take that time, especially given how much better Vulajin's PB is. It's always possible that we'll see a close tie, but it is likely that Vulajin will have enough time to spare to pretty safely get that health cell.
Yeah, absolutely. And the safety it provides is just a huge deal, because just a small mistake there, or the fish, being a little out of position can just cost you so much time, and just the peace of mind you can get with that 6 health is great.
It can. Did we explicitly talk about input methods, Aiko? I think that's always important to point out before like every race. Input differences matter in Ori to some extent.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Point it out, I guess.
So
go ahead.
We've got Vulajin running on a hybrid keyboard mouse controller setup. When you see this, it often means that runners use the controller for a fair bit, but like to use the mouse for a couple different things. You use it for bash angles, and you sometimes use the scroll wheel to get things like double bashes off. Though I don't know if Vula does that. Or actually, Vula doesn't do that. He uses the controller for double bash, but we'll get into that later.
That's right. Double bashing on controller is very, very difficult. I mean, it can be difficult on keyboard mouse as well, except that KBM has the advantage of better rebinding, especially if runners decide to do so, rebinding to the scroll wheel. So for Vulajin to do double bashes on controller, he's not the only person who can do them on controller, but I think it's fair to say he's probably the most consistent. I know he's put an enormous amount of practice into the trick, and so I don't want to say for sure that he will absolutely be using them. I think he will. I just don't want to give the wrong information, but I would not be surprised to see some controller debashes from Vula.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a trick that requires bashing the frame you let go of the bash, it is a very difficult and very precise trick. So it's very impressive when we see it. For now, though, we see our runners taking a bit of damage, grabbing some keys, putting them in the door, and then dying, because the door, in fact, requires Ori's blood to open, or like 3 seconds, but come on.
Looks like Red, despite being a little bit behind, did successfully make it through her ghost door down to 1 health, which is the optimal way to perform the trick. Vulajin also got down to its 1 health, so doing just fine. Vulajin is just showing a little bit of an early lead. Looks like Red may have had just some very, very small issues at the start, but not too much to be concerned about as we slowly head over towards wall jump. As always, it'll be interesting to see who levels up on the way down versus on the way up, and if anyone has any issues leveling up at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't expect to see too many issues in the EXP routing for Vulajin, as he's done this a bunch. It's probably knows it like the back of his hand, and since Red's been playing for such a long time, I imagine she won't have any trouble with this either.
No, and the other thing about this experience is that if you compare the definitive edition of Ori back to the vanilla version, a lot of things have changed, but this first split hasn't changed a whole lot. We've gotten a handful of minor optimizations, but like, you know, Red, even from her vanilla days, knows how to do this trick. She knows that she's not going to level up on the way down, which means that she will, just take them out and level up on the way up. But she knows enough about the experience circle. So Vulajin on the left has taken an early start. He's making it to the wall jump tree before Red, but he's only, I don't know, 10-ish seconds ahead, maybe. It's not too much. I think it's less than 10 seconds, actually.
Yeah, definitely not too much of a lead. It's real, it's there, we can all see it, but like it's not going to be a huge deal, especially considering some of the time losses we can see coming up. And now we see, Vula getting that level up on the way up, and that explosion refills his health, refills his energy, and kills basically everything. It does a bunch of damage, and he used it to clear those brambles, and just make it so that he doesn't have to stop on the way climbing up. And now we'll see on the right side of the screen, Red's going to be doing hopefully the same move. Yep, she gets it, gets the level up, and clears those brambles, blocking her path.
There's a whole argument on Discord for like a day once in the Ori community about whether they were called brambles or whether they were called, I don't even know what they were called. It wasn't like a real argument. Like no one was really angry, but people were just sort of fiercely and friendly sort of debating what they should be called. So if anyone has any votes on what they would be called, feel free to say, I guess.
Look, man, names are important. Like, just look at that entire controversy involving that room, which I will not name.
oh, that place. Anyway, to get back to the race, Vulajin has opened up his Save Anywhere heading into Black Root Bros. There's always a bit of a checklist as you go through this run. You know, you go to wall jump, then you talk about Save Anywhere, but that's because it's interesting as opposed to something like a randomizer. You know, a run like this is just about execution. You know all the tricks. It is knowledge-based in the sense that you have to know how the speedrun works, but once you know how it works, it's just a matter of sort of plinking through the tricks, grinding out runs until you can get them all cleanly.
Yeah, and then knowing a few backups for things that in a normal run you might reset for, but in a race you don't really have that luxury for. Stuff like backups for sad Cellus and minor EXP route adjustments.
That's right. Vulajin's grabbing this 100 experience orb, which will grab him a level up to also take out that slime as a nice little perk. He's doing an exit and reload. This is intentional to just slightly manipulate the cycles on Black Root Bros and save him a small amount of time. I doubt we'll see Red go for that same exit and reload because it doesn't save very much time, but we will see very shortly whether she decides to. If a runner does decide to do an exit and reload, you can do it where Vulajin did, or you can do it closer to the top of this section. You'll kind of see it both ways. Looks like Vula made it through just fine, and there's a very nice cycle. Barely made that jump.
Ooh, yeah, that was really close. All these cycles in BRB, they start the moment you either load in or enter the area. Red gets hit by that shooter and takes a really painful death, although not losing too much time because she's got a great safety save there.
That was kind of spooky. The safety save wasn't immediately visible on screen, so I wasn't sure if she had made it, but Red did, and so, as you said, didn't lose a huge amount of time. That is going to solidify Vulajin's lead, though. As we have talked about, that was close to the laser. As we've talked about many times in this tournament, I personally consider Black Root Bros to be one of the most, if not difficult, one of the most nerve-wracking areas in this speedrun, because you don't have very much mobility, and there are a lot of ways that you can slip up and take a nasty fall. Looks like Vulajin is having... Sorry, go ahead.
Not only that, but you can't see all the information you need. Like, you can get, if you, like, squint, you can see, like, where the platforms are when they're out of vision, but I think the whole darkness adds, like, a whole psychological weight to the entire thing. You're like, did I get the cycle? I can't tell. Oh, I'm so nervous. Definitely, like, a very nerve-wracking part of the speedrun. I definitely agree with that.
You have to execute it quite cleanly in order to make all the cycles you want to make. Small mistakes can cost you. Vulajin, earlier, we didn't really say it as it happened, but Vulajin did just barely miss one of his cycles. So he is still in the lead comfortably as he comes up to the dash tree, but that's going to cost Vulajin probably about 8 seconds, because by a funny coincidence, pretty much everything in the universe in Ori just loses you 8 seconds in this early game when you miss any cycle. It's kind of funny how that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to program your platform to say all the same cycle timer. Can't blame them.
I suppose. So next up, we're going to see Vulajin take his attempts at Frankie Walk. I wouldn't expect anything too crazy, although I'm fairly certain that Vulajin is going to go for his Death Glide once he gets through the door. We'll find out when we get there, I suppose. That's a trick that Richard, I think, found originally. He was the one who found the Death Glide, but then Vulajin, I know, was a pretty big fan of it early on. He was a fan of it in the sense that it's a stupid, dumb trick that can kill you and saves you not much time at all, but Vulajin, I think, secretly loves it.
I mean, It is a stupid trick. It does barely save you much time. It can't get you killed. But on the other hand, it looks really, really cool, Grim. And
it was. And Richard is also updating us that Vulajin was the first person to do the death glide in a race, which I did not know. So I probably did know that. Maybe I forgot it. Vulajin made it through, and he got a nice safety 10% energy drop. Decided to do the frog dunking route so he doesn't have to dodge underneath it. He's going to make it through. Vulajin's going to drop back onto this crusher, and as it rises up, he's going to do a nice clean dash glide and didn't take any damage. That's not easy to do, taking no damage on that trick.
Yeah, that's really cool to see. And he got the safety energy drop, so he's probably feeling real good as he enters the Moon Grotto. On the right, we see RedR3dRum is executing her Frankie Rock. Will hopefully not have any trouble either with the walk itself or with the Death Gauntlet. And
that's right.
Like,
you are just on top of that. I was so ready. I was looking at the other screen, like, I'm going to do the right thing, and you were just on top of it.
Sorry about that.
No. It's a good thing. I'm sorry to you for almost interrupting you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
It's okay, Grim. I forgive you.
Thank you.
Speaking of interruptions, Red almost gets hit by the Frankie on its way down into the water, but does not die. Very fortunate. That must have been nerve-wracking for her, but she gets through the Death Gauntlet.
Wow.
Makes the safety save, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, smart move by Red. She was a little bit spooked probably with that damage, and so rather than dropping down and then making a safety save, said, you know what, I'm going to grab the energy cell, take the refill, and just make a save without even moving. I'm going to chalk up that 1 second just to make sure that she has a safety save, and holy cow, did it pay off. So Red, let's see if she can almost got the Grotto cycle. The movement is pretty precise getting to that location. Close, though.
Yeah, and speaking of movement and locations, on the left we have Vulajin coming up to the Grotto skip, which is a very precise bit of movement where you just sort of jump around this cliff, and Vulajin showing that even for very seasoned runners it can be a little difficult, but he nails it third try, and that skips the left half of Grotto, which nobody has ever even seen, so we don't even know how long it could take.
The left half of Grotto is something that pretty much you only ever do in either a 100% run, which pretty much nobody runs at this point, or a randomizer, because there's like 1 or 2 collectibles over there. It's an area that most runners have not seen for quite some time, similar to the prologue, actually.
Prologue? This game is a prologue?
It does have a prologue. I do also want to point out that Red took a death near that second keystone before the door, so she had to go back to that earlier safety save. Took a second attempt at the Grotto cycle and was not able to get it, so that's going to cost Red a little bit of time. Thankfully, as always, not as bad as it could be due to some well-placed safety saves, but certainly some time lost that Red was not looking for in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And on Vula's screen, we see him heading up out of the lower Moon Grotto. He's going to step on a teleporter so he can come back here later, and we're going to see a bunch of cutscenes playing out of order because we're actually going through this all backwards because of the Frankie Walk sequence break.
We are. If anyone wants to know what this run used to look like, there were probably some old vanilla runs, like pre-Frankie Walk routes floating around on YouTube somewhere. So Red got through a blind movement and made it pretty high up on the wall. She actually made it too high and said hello to the spikes a little bit, did some spike testing from Moon Studios. Turns out they still hurt. But Red is alive, assuming that, that Frankie can sometimes clip you on the wall, but no bad luck today. So Red is going to be taking her attempts in just a moment at the Grotto skip. Vulajin got it third try, so let's see if Red can do better. He's going to jump over to the left, try to wall jump off a spot on the wall, missed it first try and missed a second try.
Ooh, another log is spinning. Oh.
You know what, that's par for par with Vulajin, though.
Yeah. So they're equal on that. That is one of 2 places where the movement can get a little frustrating if you miss it the first try, because you're jumping from or to one of those physics swinging platforms. The more movement you do, the more it moves. And it's just like, oh, please let me get up there.
I think that's like one of the perils of any physics-based mechanic in a video game, is sometimes the physics might get a little too physicsy for you.
Yeah, and speaking of places where physics can get far too physicsy, Vulajin is entering the Ginsu tree, where we will not be seeing any of that madness. But yeah, Graham, you want to tell us about the Ginsu tree?
The Ginsu tree is a vertical dungeon. Everybody knows that. The thing that we were kind of joking about is that we're currently running all skills, no out of bounds, no teleport anywhere, but there's also an any percent version of the speedrun, and in any percent, there's a trick you can do, which is called, I don't remember what it's called, it's really stupid. You can mess with the platforms in the first room of Ginsu and essentially cause it to warp you all the way to the end of the entire game. And it abuses the physics on some of the platforms. So that's what we were kind of joking about, that the physics in that first room can be quite interesting. But all weird physics aside, Vulajin is well past that first room. He's going to make it to the puzzle room, which as far as Ori goes is a little bit of a respite, as he just gets to sort of wait for this flower thing to shoot 2 different projectiles. Red has made her way up out of Moon Grotto in the meantime, timed level up to take out the frog and grab its experience, and is going to be grabbing 1 more ability cell up on top of this tree before also heading to the dungeon.
Yeah, and Vulajin performing a little bit of a skip from the vanilla way of doing this puzzle. It turns out you have enough time to shove that little elbow piece into the teleporter and then make it redirect the shot both times to get through the door. Now he's on to the Ginsu mini-boss, first mini-boss, which is one of the few sources of sort of RNG in the game. It'll pop out in any of 5 different locations. You get a 1-frame tell on where it's going to be, and we only have this little babby attack to get it, and ooh, that was close. But he gets it.
We're good, though. Vulajin's experienced enough with this game. Did get a nice 5 cycle. Ordinarily, many players after that boss would take a little bit of intentional damage before making the save, but Vula already took damage unintentionally, so it sort of didn't lose him any time whatsoever. He would have taken that damage anyway. The reason that Vulajin took the intentional damage is similar to the first ghost door. We need to intentionally get our health low enough to make a save before this door here, before Bash. There's the save. See if he got the hyperspeed, too. Didn't get a hyperspeed, that's fine, and that's going to bring Vulajin all the way to Bash, while Red has entered Ginsu Tree and is... we're sort of both in the same very tall tree at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Bash, the game super opens up. I always like grabbing Bash in my playthroughs and other people's playthroughs, because it's the point where enemies, projectiles, other things stop being something you run away from and become a resource. Because what Bash lets you do is grab them and throw yourself, and also whatever you're grabbing in the opposite direction, kind of like some sort of high-velocity hug in midair.
Some might even call it a super hug, Sigma and Ella Jiminy. We're also seeing Vulajin, he's... let me try that sentence over. Vulajin got a quick setup for what he's going to do, a trick known as a key duplication, or key dupe for shorts. And to do that, Vulajin took out a slime and intentionally damaged himself at the same time. Did not get his key dupe. His death was a little bit too far to the side, so that's going to cost Vulajin some time and allow Red to catch up just a little bit. That was super close on Vulajin's side. Must have just been like just a hair too far to the left.
And yeah, he's being a little more careful with it this time instead of doing the swag drop down, and he gets it. So how a key dupe works is if you die with keys in the door physically and your save is far enough away, you basically get the double refund. They go back to the map, they're back in your inventory. And with these 3 extra keys, we won't have to do some swimming around in poison water that we actually couldn't do, so it's handy that this glitch exists.
Yeah, Vulajin was having a little bit of trouble with those keystones. He did take a nice quick death after the Ghost Star and got a hyperspeed, so that's going to, make up a precious second or 2 or whatever it might be. I think one of those shots just missed. Vulajin actually took a death to that mini-boss. Thankfully, the game automatically auto-saves right at the start of the fight, so it doesn't really lose you much, and this mini-boss is super fast anyway, but that's just going to be little bits of time here and there, so as always, these races are a bit of a zero-sum game. Bad news for Vulajin equals good news for Red.
Yeah, absolutely, and Red is about to pick up Bash for herself, which is pretty good. She's going for the ghost door and decides not to go for it. Meanwhile, Vulajin is warping out of the Ginsu tree. We no longer do the top because it is slower, which is why you'll see runners picking up more health than you might have if you were watching this run around this time last year.
All right, this is a trick that is one of a handful of kind of primary gauntlets in the speedrun. Sour Bash is really hard. There's a handful of hard things. Key dupe is kind of difficult to learn. This is one of the other ones, though. Vulajin is deciding to do his blind movement, which many runners will decide to skip since it only saves like a second or 2 anyway, at the risk of taking damage. But Vulajin, the professional, does not need any of the safety. He's going to bash the frog over multiple times. As we said, Vulajin can do double bashes on controller, but oh no! I saw exactly what happened there. The frog fired early, and so Vulajin accidentally bashed the shot, which in turn immediately hit the frog rather than bashing the frog itself. That's a little bit unlucky.
Yeah, in Ori and the Blind Forest, almost everything that shoots projectiles is exceptionally vulnerable to its own shot. A little bit of poetic justice there, especially once you get bashed, but it can turn into disaster if you don't want to kill the thing you're interacting with, which is what happened to Vula. But he gets back, not that much time lost, and he gets the perfect swamp entry second time with that consistent single bash setup. That's just very impressive to see.
That's right. I mean, Vulajin is one of the best players on the planet. We mentioned that Vulajin had run this game at Games Done Quick twice. The first one was way back at SGDQ 2015, like when Ori was just a wee baby speed game. And the last one was just about what, less than 2 months ago now at AGDQ 2018, where he did a 4-way race with Terra, Hydra, and Sigma. So Vula is, we've talked about rust from a lot of runners. Vula is absolutely not rusty. You know, he's just playing at a very, very high level. Which
yeah,
means
definitely.
Sometimes these little mistakes can, well, it's sort of what we've talked about. These kinds of mistakes are not exclusive to newer, more inexperienced runners. They can happen to anyone.
Yeah, as it turns out, this game is just kind of difficult.
It is very, very difficult. But Vula's play, most of it has been very, very clean. Didn't have almost any issues in BRB. He did miss out one cycle, but besides that, he's had some very, very clean play. There's the safety save. Vulajin's going to be taking the same frog again to grab an extra ability cell. You can either bash up the frog one more time for safety. There goes the froggy. That's okay. That's why you make a safety save. Looks like Vulajin, rather than reloading his save, is going to take another backup where you use these what are they? Worms, the sit-shoot shark worm things, in order to make it across. The whole point here is that you need a projectile to get up to this ability cell, and if you can't use the frog itself as a bash point, you can use those projectiles. So Vulajin got the cell. This is just going to be a little bit of time for Red to catch up, though, as Red on the right is taking her attempt at swamp entry.
Yeah, ooh, it looks like she's going for a double bash. Very nice. She gets the first one, and it looks like she's going for the double bash version of Swamp Entry. This is slightly different. Instead of bringing the frog down with you, you instead allow its shot to arc and then do a series of double bashes, and oh no! She fired it perfectly, but the shots can just sort of sometimes clip through the floor or ceiling here, and that can be a little frustrating, but she's going for a second attempt, undaunted, and gets it. All right, so that is a very good Swamp Entry by RedR3dRum. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard not to let that happen. It's not really something you can reasonably control.
No,
so she gets it.
It's just bad luck. It's basically physics RNG, because that does exist to a very, very small amount, but in that particular location, I don't know on a programmatic level what in the world would cause that to happen, but sometimes the shots or the frog itself can just phase out of existence. Like if you get super unlucky, the frog can just fall all the way through the platform and you have to reload, but Red was able to get it the second try, so no big issues. While we were saying that, Vulajin did, by the way, get a first try Kuro cutscene skip. I promise we didn't miss that, Vula. So that's gonna... Saving time is kind of the wrong word, because Vula pretty much always gets that, but Red is gonna have to make sure that she gets it too in order to try to keep as close pace as she can.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we see Vula skipping a skippable cutscene, because that skippable cutscene has an unskippable part at the end, and we absolutely do not want to have to sit through those like 5 seconds of looking at the map. And we're already leveling up some skills, so why not? And now Vula is entering the left side of the map, also known as the Valley of the Wind. And here we're going to see a series of 2 very difficult and very impressive looking tricks in fast succession, which is going to be Fast Stompless and Sour Bash.
That's right. This is one of my favorite areas of the run. We always talk about Misty Woods being a showcase, and it is. But for me personally, like even when I'm just doing sort of segment practice, I always like to go back to the Ginso tree and this section. I find it to be just very pure in the sense of you just get to do a bunch of bashes and wall jumps and dashes, and you can just try to optimize every little molecule of your movement that you can. And Vulajin is just going to be able to show us basically how it's done. He'll be going up top and stomping on this this bird to get into the ability cell, and then he's going to be taking his attempts at Fast Stompless. Just a really quick check-in on the right side. Red did mess her Kuro cutscene once and is going to be taking a second attempt at it just now. Got it. Nice.
Okay, and she gets it. All right, that's good. Vula just fired off his shot. Looked good to me, though I'm not an expert at shot reading, and he's coming up here for the cell, and he gets it. Yes. All right.
Nice, dude. An expert at shot reading. Now, we sort of joke about that. It can be very difficult sometimes to know whether your shot was good for Fast Stompless. Like, it's a trick that most experienced runners won't miss, but sometimes it just seems to have a mind of its own. But Vulajin got it. Red also went out of her way to get the a 5th hell cell at this area that we call the Spider Coves. I was not actually aware that she was going to go for that one, but it's going to give her a little bit of extra safety.
Takes a bit of a death here, but luckily she has a safety save because she just picked up energy. Getting out of this area, if you're not super familiar with the movement and you get the rhythm wrong, can be a little frustrating because the spider has to shoot at exactly the right time. Otherwise, you're hitting those spikes and just dying. Those spikes actually deal infinite damage, which I didn't know until I tried going down there with 12 health.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Not to interrupt, Vulajin. If I had let you finish that sentence, I think Vulajin would have been through Sour Bash by the time you finished. Look at that execution. That is a particular version of Sour Bash that most other runners don't do. Vulajin has sort of a very particular setup that actually ends up killing that final bird right at the end. But if you bash in the right way, you can still get a bash off of the bird that you just killed. It's kind of weird, but you can do it. And Vulajin is going to not make a safety save. He's just that confident in his movement, dashing through the air. All of these spikes in the... Wait a minute. I have them written down. The the multi-grain monastery. In the multi-grain monastery, was able to make it through. Didn't touch any of them. He's fine. He's fine.
He is indeed fine. I have to say that Sour Bash variant terrifies me every time, because seeing the bird take a charge dash, like actually taking the damage, to me always signifies that, oh no, I messed it up, I better restart. So actually seeing that work is just a beauty every time. And now he's...
Yeah. I've tried Vulajin's method. I have a hard time with it, so, you know, it's cool that he can get it that consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway. And now Vulajin is coming back from the charge jump tree. He's going to immediately use charge jump with the glitch that we like to call Terra Break, where you basically do another one of those saves right next to a platform you want to break, and then you die charge jumping, and you respawn still charge jumping for a frame, break the ceiling, and now he heads up to pick up the Fun Stone.
Sometimes I just call that the bad trick, or like the worst half of Team Zoe trick. Get it, Terra?
Yeah.
That was a funny joke. Good one. Vulajin has made it up to the top. He's at his Sunstone. Vulajin, like many runners, just carried his save anywhere up to the top of the area after performing the Terror Break, because then you don't have to waste another energy to make a save point and save time. Red got the bash off of that bird, even though it was dead. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that like you can bash on something the same frame it dies, and you're just sort of left awkwardly holding the corpse. And when you let go, the EXP flies everywhere. It's kind of gruesome. Ooh, Red taking a death on her way up. She's all the way back to the Spirit Well. That's gotta sting, honestly. Fair for the time loss. Vula dropping through Sorrow Pass, and falls through, barely uses any feather, and gets the meteor kick all the way down into Misty.
Yep, you also see Vulajin turn on his user interface, because right now there are no text boxes for a short period of time, so Vulajin's going to be able to just make it through. Looks like he may have burned one unintentional energy, but he should be fine. All you need is to make sure you have at least one more. Oh god, backup rocket jump from Vulajin. Nicely done, and he still has 2 energy, so he should be fine here. As I said, he only needs to make sure he keeps 1 in order to be able to do these continuous chains of C-dash cancels.
Oh, and he drops it to make a safety save. I really like that. Going through this area on 1 energy, his save is back up at that point at the Sunstone. I'm really happy to see that save, because it would not have been worth the extra C dashes to die there on 1 health and go all the way back up to the top of Sorrow Pass.
Well, I also know that both Vulajin and Red are watching each other. Vulajin, I think, always watches his opponents. I talked to Red just before the race, and she said that she is going to be watching this time, although I think she usually doesn't. So Vulajin... It's not only smart to take that safety anyway, but he knows that he can afford it because he is in the lead over Red. Speaking of Red, Red is taking her attempts at Fast Stompless. Did have a little bit of trouble getting to this area, and that's going to be... Yep, looks like Red took an intentional death, because even if Red had gotten far enough away and her shot was good, she would have gotten something that we call Sat Cell-less, and so Red decided to just take an honorable death rather than get Sat Cell-less.
Yeah, that's absolutely understandable. In fact, I think it wastes much less time if you just if you nail it the next time, than just to go for the backup on Sat Cell. But oh no! All right, so she's got to try it again. We'll see. Hopefully she can get it this time. This trick is really hard, honestly.
You know, sorry to interrupt you. Good awareness by Red as well to make the safety save at the bottom. If Red didn't have that safety save, she would probably be sent all the way back to the Spirit Tree in the worst case. And that safety save has been paying dividends since Red has had to take multiple attempts at this trick. She got to the cell that time, but did not get the shot, so Red's going to go back up. I think Red said that she was having some issues with this trick before the run. Yep, looks like she's deciding to just forego it in the interest of progressing in the race. As you said, that's a trick that can just sort of get in your head a little bit. Vulajin also did some really nice strats in the meatball shaft, as we call it, on the left side. He did a strat that I've really only seen J-Hobbs go for. At least frequently, but Vulajin, knows what he's doing with that area. And
there was kill too. Something there. It died. I'm not really sure what happened, but it's probably fine. He levels up. Everything's good. Yeah, that was really interesting. The meatball shot, was that like pre-chimed charge jumps up diagonally? I actually have not seen that. That seems like something that would be.
It's a few things. It's really silly. It's another one of those strats that it doesn't save you almost anything. It's slower than the rocket jump. But Vul was able to do a C-jump up. He intentionally damage boosted on one of the meatballs, one of the little spiky balls, and charge jumped off it again, and then did a pre-charged charge jump in mid-air to immediately land on the wall and charge jump diagonally, if that whole sequence of events made sense.
No, I mean, I can kind of parse that. That's just, it's so much, man. Why?
Yeah, and it's really dangerous because you take intentional damage. And Vulajin is still only at 4 health. But Vulajin did make it through, executed it very, very cleanly. Vulajin is heading down into Blackroot Burst for the second time to get his final skill, Light Grenade or Light Burst, where Red is taking her attempts at Sorrow Bash. Charge dash to... Oh, so close. So close. I'm not sure why that didn't charge dash at the bird, to be honest, on the second time there. I feel like it should have, but that's okay. Red's going to take a second attempt at it. Red does currently have 5 health, which means that she can damage boost one time on these spikes without dying. Although at this point, she may opt to just sort of die and reset the trick. No is going for double bashes, is not going to let the damage deter her. Well, now she is. That's fine. That was strategic, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you just gotta die for the RNG manipulation. Sour Bash, or as some people like to call it, oh my god, birds, please, just go in the right place. Yeah, there we go, and they did it. Good birds, excellent, by which I mean incredible work by Red. Good job on Sour Bash. It is a very difficult trick, but unfortunately it is super necessary. It is a sequence break that cuts out a whole, like, 20 minutes of content sometimes. It's...
Now that's rough. Now that's rough to interrupt you. Did you see what happened?
Yeah, she killed the frog that she needed to. Basically, you got to rocket jump past that frog to get its shot breaking that wall. But oh man, she nails it on the run back, so that's great.
I mean, Red is just really showing her experience. This is a hard trick, and I know that Red has been derusting, but Sarabash is also a trick that, similar to some of the others, has existed since the earliest days. Like, Sarabash was one of the earliest tricks that was found in Ori. I started... Oh no! The snipe! Oh my god! That frog is just on a mission. It's a professionally government-hired hitman or something. My god.
Yeah, absolutely. The projectile shooting enemies in this game can be pretty brutal because their hitboxes are big, and if you're not expecting it and you don't have like a bash buffer, you're just gonna be in for a face full of bad time.
That's right. Well, Red has made it in for the 3rd time. As I was saying, Red showing her experience, able to do this trick multiple times despite having the issues. I do want to direct everyone's attention over to the left. We've been talking about Red pretty exclusively for the past maybe 2 minutes or so, only because Vulajin hasn't really given us that much to talk about. He's just executing extremely cleanly, as we know he's capable of pulling off. But Vulajin is now going to be taking his attempts at the frame-perfect door warp trick. Let's see if he can get it first try. He has to enter the door on the frame that the game loads. And he did.
And he's through. Very good. Meanwhile, Red, 3rd time's the charming, her sorrow. She gets all the way through the abstract pointy death area with no problem and is making her way to charge jump. But Vulajin is starting his final escape.
He is indeed. This is the culmination of whatever. I'm not Muffin. I can't do it as well as he did. But this is an area we have to get through without taking damage. We've talked about the final escape a billion times. I have a feeling that most people watching understand how it works, but that doesn't mean that you can't appreciate the execution. Even seeing Ori speedruns a million times, like all of us have, it's still very fun to see someone as skilled as Vula, just using all the skills at his disposal to not only make it through the escape without taking damage, because he needs to not take damage. He's only at 5 health, and he needs all 5 health to make it through the poison water, but he's doing it using a series of stomp cancels and other such fancy maneuvers. He's going to bash off the 2 fish and made it out of the water. Nice job. And then he's coming up on the grenade jump. Ico, I'll throw to you again to cover that at the end.
Alright, so grenade jumps are a relatively recent addition to the speedrun, and essentially you get this before I finish saying it, but has 3 buttons, 1 frame apart. You basically do a charge jump off a wall with a grenade thrown in there, and it just unlocks your horizontal momentum, so you just go flying. And if you do it right there, you hit 2 cutscene triggers at once and skip the first half of the ending, which is why that looked really silly. Multi-Ori.
It's pretty rude of Vulajin, to be quite honest. He cut you off like that. You're trying to explain the trick, and he's like, "Oh, look at me, I'm Vulajin. I'm just gonna get grenade jump first try."
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should have just said it faster.
Anyway, so Vulajin's just about done with his run. He just has to hold, right? And then we'll be getting confirmation on his final time quite shortly, which means that we can focus all of our attention over on the right side of the screen for Red. She has made it through Sorrow. What's the word I'm looking for? Without dying correctly, I think is the word I was looking for. So Red is going to be stomping down through this area that we previously done all these rocket jumps to get up through. Looks like she's going to opt for a little bit of safety around all these spikes, which will... Actually, they will insta-kill her. Red has a total of 5 health, but she currently only has 3. So if she had touched those spikes, it would have meant instant death. But she made it through, and now Red is going to head into Misty Woods as well.
Yep, and she makes a safety save at the bottom. I really like seeing that. It's usually people won't die here, but if you do, having to fall all the way down Sour Pass again is just soul crushing, and it loses you a lot of time. So really good seeing that, especially because she had 3 health, so the save refilled her back to full. In Ori, you get health back when you save, especially with the abilities that we level up on our way to getting Charge Dash and all the other goody things in the upper ability tree. So,
I do want to point out Vulajin's final time was a 31:41, which is not a PB, which is not saying that much. Vula's PB is really, really good, so it's comparatively difficult for him to PB. That is a best race time though for Vula. His previous best race time I think was a 32:25, assuming that my numbers are accurate. So he improved his best race time there by quite a bit, and more importantly took the victory in this race. That's going to put Vulajin at 2-0 in his group rather than 1-0, and Red will conversely be at 0-2, but that will be later. Red has to finish her run first, which she's making short work of. She's almost done with the first half of Misty Woods, the first half being roughly getting to the climb tree. And then to get out of Misty Woods, you just have to progress through the rest of it. It's, for anyone who hasn't played this game, Misty Woods is an area that's sort of like the game Anti-Chamber. It changes as you go through it. So the area that you just came from, if you go off screen and come back, it might look different. And that's exactly what happens here. It's not a surprise if you're a speedrunner, but it's surprising casually.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it was actually really cool to have played this game for the first time right after Anti-Chamber, and you're actually the first person who has likened it to that, which I think is super cool because they're both great games.
They are both great games.
Red having to do a little bit of tricky movement with the charge jump to get over here. Normally in this room there's like the silly jumping puzzle, but we have charge jump, so we're gonna ignore all of that.
That's right. It is nice to be able to ignore puzzles. You're not supposed to have charge jump in Misty Woods, by the way, because you're supposed to do Misty Woods and then Forlorn Ruins before you ever go into Sorrow Pass. But we do Misty Woods out of order, and we skip Forlorn Ruins entirely because for whatever reason there is no skill in Forlorn Ruins.
Well, yeah, but there's wind. Wind is nice.
There is. I guess there's also no skill in Mount Horror though. There's a skill in Ginso. We have to go to Mount Horror anyway because it's the pathway to the end of the game. It's kind of interesting. There's a skill in 1 out of the 3 dungeons.
Well, I mean, there's a skill at every tree. Ginsu tree's a tree. Makes sense. So now we see Red going through the second half of Misty. Rocket jumps a little off position. Rocket jump positioning can be tricky because what matters is not just where Ori is in an absolute sense, but it's also where Ori is relative to the enemy that the charge jump would be targeting. And that determines like sort of the initial angle you go flying up at.
That's right. It's also tricky because you cannot explicitly target things with your charge dash. You just sort of have to charge dash and let the game decide what you hit. And it tends to be pretty consistent, but not always. So if you're just a hair too far away, you can have trouble. Red made very short work of that mini boss. It looked like the same quick kill method that Vulajin used. So nice job by Red. I do want to go ahead and bring Vulajin in for an interview. So I'm just going to ping him really quick so we don't catch him off guard. And we're going to sort of chat with Vulajin while Red makes her way through the next area and then towards Mount Boru. So let me just do that quickly.
Hey there, Vulajin. How you feeling?
Hey, what's up? I'm feeling all right. It was a pretty okay run.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my first question. You improved your best race time. Are you feeling overall happy or disappointed with the run?
I mean, I always want to have a faster time. I was annoyed that the Kidup and Swamp Entry were a problem for me again, but they were in like all my practice runs yesterday and today, so I was just kind of like, you know, there's a chance I'll probably die on Kidup or something stupid like that, and it's kind of whatever. So it annoyed me, but didn't like ruin my mindset or anything like that.
Well, there's something to be said for consistency, so you know you're at least losing time at the same places every time.
You would think that would mean I would be better at being able to fix that time loss in the same spot every time, but alas, it's hard.
Vula, I want to ask you a specific question. You're hybrid, which we mentioned, but where specifically do you switch to keyboard mouse?
So, the mini boss in Yinso, all of the save anywheres except Terror Break and Grenade Jump at the end.
Have you ever considered joining the dark side and going full keyboard mouse, or do you just like controller too much?
Nope.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
All right. What if I had a controller with a scroll wheel?
Oh God!
Please do not introduce such an abomination.
Pretty much. By the way, Red's going for a grenade jump, and you got it. Nice job on the grenade jump. Oh God, I'm not sure what else to say, Vula. You're just too good at the video game. I guess I'll ask you a question about the tournament itself, since you are one of the maybe hard to argue that you're not the primary driving force behind this tournament existing. How are you feeling about the tournament so far and how it's going?
I'm incredibly happy. I mean, last year I was already super happy with how the tournament went, and then we managed to nearly double the number of competitors, which is just absolutely crazy. So I'm just over the moon, like seeing all the different people participating and seeing how well they're doing is just so much fun. All the improvement, the constant PBs on the leaderboard. We had to get new leaderboard mods just to handle all the times, so it's pretty awesome.
I agree.
All right, and
it's a lot of fun too.
Interrupt the interview a bit. We're seeing Red do a couple of the grenade jumps on the last leg of the run. It's really cool to see this. Not many people go for these outside of the one that you're required to do, but if you can nail them first time, they do save a lot of time, and more importantly, they are so cool.
They are indeed. Yeah, so we're going to focus back in on Red in just a minute. Before we do, Vulajin, as Red is, making your way over to Mount Horu, what's your door warp attempts? I'm going to pretend that you're commentating for a minute.
Red's going to nail it first try. She's got this.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
Absolutely.
I'll hop out. Go Red.
Okay. Bye, Vulajin.
All right, thanks for talking to us.
That was Vulajin, everyone. Tune in tonight. I don't know. Vulajin's actually commentating the next race, isn't he?
Yeah, yep, that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully I didn't say anything that bothers him too much. Actually, he's not going to have a chance to listen to this match's commentary unless he was listening live, in which case, whoops. But yeah, now we have Red going for one of the swag grenade jumps that feels super cool. You just sort of go flying over this last area, and this trick is really hard. You have to basically throw a grenade the frame before you let go of the grenade, the charge jump, and if you do the grenade too soon, you lose half an energy and just are sort of out of luck, and if you do it the grenade too late, you just sort of jump off the wall and look like you made a mistake.
Yeah,
that's what you look like.
But I kind of like it. I think taking the multiple attempts is sort of indicative of Red's personality. She knows that she's lost the race, so she's probably just thinking, you know what, I want to put on a bit of a show. And almost got it. It's just a hard trick. We'll see if Vulajin's prediction will come true and Red can get a first try. She did.
Very good.
All right. All right, so
Gula does not have commentators' curses.
No. We spend a lot of time blaming people in these commentaries, like ourselves or like Hobbs or, I don't know, Terra or something like that. This time we're going to give Vulajin credit for Red's first try door warp attempt. Red gets a little bit of credit, I guess, but, Vulajin gets most of the credit, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, who's doing the work, really? The runner or the person she was running against and then came in to make a prediction during Q&A? I think it really has to go to Vulajin here.
I agree. I think retroactively it depends on whether it was good or bad. So Red is going to make her way through the escape. I'm always curious to see exactly how people decide to do this escape. Many of these barricades you can break with either stomps or charge dashes or charge jumps or charge flames. Looks like Red is opting for a handful of charge flames. I believe that Red has 6 health. I might be wrong about that, but I think she has 6 health, so she will probably have a bit of an easier time with this poison water, although you still have to be pretty quick in order to make it through.
And she's out. All right, good. Now we see Red climbing up this wall. She doesn't spawn Kuro. When you do a charge jump over that area, which you'll see almost every runner doing, you don't spawn Kuro, and instead of having that whole time gate where you're just panicking through this area, she's falling down a bit. She can just grab these rocks. All right, good. She gets into position and now is going for her final grenade jump and gets it first try. Not even with that setup. All right, very good.
It's kind of cool. Red was just having some issues with that grenade jump on the entrance to Mount Horu, so I was, a hair worried just getting into that trick, but Red showing us that, I don't know, the other one was just a fluke. Clearly she knows what she's doing, and Red will be out. We'll be getting a final time on her before too long here. So good job to Red as well.
Yeah, absolutely. GG to Red and to Vula, both showing us excellent runs.
That is right. As we said, Vulajin is one of our top runners who's been with the game literally since day one, and he's been putting in the practice has the knowledge to be. Red has also been around for a long time, has just not been quite as active recently, so this is not too surprising. This is still not too far off her PB either. Red's PB is currently at a 38.54, so that's only a few minutes behind. So I think Red will probably be looking to improve that, but I think that's an okay showing. I think it would have been very, very difficult. No offense to Red, but it would have been very, very difficult to take a victory against Vulajin in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would have almost been out of her hands at some level. Like, I think it would have required, no small amount of spaghetti from Vulajin, who is not known for his incredible Italian cooking.
Sorry, we had a moment of dead air there. Technical difficulties. No, it wasn't technical difficulties. I was muted and I was typing an SRL chat because I don't want everyone to hear my frantic typing. My keyboard is super, super loud. I'm going to see if we can get Red in for an interview. She may or may not want to interview, after any race. Some runners just don't like talking at all. Some runners after they lose, especially, might not want to talk. So we'll just take a moment, let Red catch her breath, and then if she decides to talk to us, then we will ask her some questions. And if not, then we will just talk about something for a few minutes, and then we'll sort of prepare for the next race.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can also talk about like what this means for the group. Obviously, as we said before, this puts Vula at 2-0, giving him a lot of comfort. He's got one last match against Hobbs, but he can feel how, no matter how that goes, I think it'll be he'll be pretty happy with his standing. So obviously, he'd rather win, but a 2-1 with his best race time probably means pretty good seeding for the brackets, even if he were to drop that match to Hobbs.
That's right. I have to say, I don't want to say too much about it because the feature matches versus Hobbs are something that can be covered by the commentators for those later matches, but I'll just sort of say that I'm very, very excited. Hobbs is someone who's been sort of similar to Vulajin, very active in speedrunning as a whole for quite some time. He opened this previous GDQ. Again, whatever, I don't need to go into Hobbs' whole history, but the point is that he's another very veteran Ori runner, and so I'll be excited to see how he gets to compete against both Red and Vulajin. And here you can see the stats on screen sort of reflecting what we just talked about a moment ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a cool group, I have to say. I mean, it's no Forlorn Ruins cool, but it's a pretty cool group. Okay, so anyway, we're going to go ahead and close out here. We have 2 more Ori matches remaining. The one coming up next is going to be Sigma versus Smashy, which I am personally super excited for. I don't know about you, Aiko.
Well, I'm definitely excited for it because I'm commentating. And if I'm not excited about a race I'm commentating, I've done something very wrong, I think.
Yeah, the next match is going to be commentated by Aiko, who, as you just said, is going to be commentating, and Vula, who just won this race. So we're going to close out for right now, and then we'll be back shortly. So pleasure commentating with you, Aiko.
Yeah, always. All right. See you later, everyone, or very soon.